Iran into war with Iran and gave them the means to do so, including even mustard gas and nerve gas from Fort Dixie, which you'll see in a few minutes the result thereof. So, this was a little delegation. We were supposed to be 16. We had a number of vets for peace, and they were not allowed to get visas into the country. Only 6 of us got in. But we immediately started drawing together on the ends of people that were members, friends from there that came to join with us in this peace. So it's a country, very complex country. That's Tehran, busy place, the most dangerous streets I ever saw if you're trying to get across them. Bazaars, roads to sail, all of that. But an incredible, not working. Okay, well that's a question. Let's see, this doesn't move. If I move just a little bit. Just so I can turn this just a little bit here. Okay, I think I can do that better. So, we had, the principle just shows us they have an ancient culture of over 2,000 years, where ours is a couple of hundred years old. And the people reflect that. These beautiful bridges that reflect their culture. They don't have much in the way of discos and things legally, but the young people even gathered in these places and respect it. You don't find broken bottles and paper and stuff thrown all over the place. They have really great respect. In fact, they said to us, you know, my America seems so poor. Your city seems so dirty, and your buses, old buses. Well, isn't it true? And so, but they have these beautiful buildings and tiles and all of that. And they are a great religious heritage. They have this very famous library here. This is in Qom, which is considered the religious kind of center for Islam, and the finest stories and records of their scriptures, and even scriptures of Christianity and Judaism that they preserve. But not everybody is caught up in Islam, even though it's a nation of Islam. They have that right on the sides of the airplanes. This young man we met in the park, this is David Hartsoe. He's a Quaker, very ardent Quaker. He was 17 years old. He went to the lunch counters in Salem and got a knife in his throat and says, "White boy, get out of here, or you're going to have it." And he just says, "Well, you'll have to do what you have to do, but I'll still love you." The guy dropped the knife and took off. So David's still alive, and he's still going everywhere you can imagine. I was mentioning that we're talking with him about going to Gaza. But this young man said he's not anything to do with Islam, but he really was very interested in what's going on in the world, and they want to know about our new president. They have children there, and yet they have this history where we were responsible for the CIA coup and Ms. Mossadegh, the prime minister, and the return of the Shah. And when the Shah came back, a lot of repression increased only greatly. He lived in a very affluent lifestyle, that's his palace up above, and bankrupted the country by selling off almost all of its reserves so he could entertain in high style the royalty of the world. Then that led to the return, what they called a revolution, with the return of Ayatollah Khomeini, and lived in this little simple kind of cell here, and kind of friendly with the guy, isn't he? Anyway, he established a fundamentalist government, which many people still adhere to. Now, I want to point out here, this is a young man here facing us. He was one of our guides and interpreters. He stayed with us all the time, and very devoted to Islam, and was actually probably employed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, kind of like a CIA or something. I don't know, he and his partner. And they would ask me everywhere we go, we were supposed to have it cleared. Like that young man we met in the park, that was because of David's boldness to just keep going where we hadn't necessarily gotten permission to go and talking to people. But now David just got a message from him that from Ali, that he was just released from prison. So many of the people we were involved in have been involved in the issue of the elections. It was just before the elections that we were there. Yeah, he was very much happy with his government, I guess, to some extent, but now looking for change. So the 80 to 88 war brought about reaction. These were postage stamps. I was looking at buttons in a bazaar booth, and he said, "Well, maybe you'd be interested in these." And he pulled out a stamp book collection. He had little four stamp blocks of stamps that were current at that time. So this is showing the CIA, their awareness the CIA had brought about damage, and the students then rose up and took over the embassy. In the meanwhile, we were most concerned about about protecting our oil shipments. So we had our latest cruiser, the SS Vincennes, in the straits there, and they were kind of protecting things for our oil supplies. But in the meanwhile, they got a blip on their screen. They had the most sophisticated Aegis radar screen, and they Captain wanted, well, who is it? And where are they? Where are they going? And they didn't really know, but they kind of guessed that it was a fighter plane headed towards the ship. So he said, shoot them down. And they did, and there were 199 passengers on board who were all killed and fell into the Gulf. The captain of the Vincennes received a presidential award for protecting his ship. So they have never, when they say you're going to negotiate, etc., they say, well, you've never apologized for this, nor for starting that war, etc. So there are still issues on both sides, I guess. This was the embassy. They did take over, the students took over the embassy, and they say that's what caused the failure of Carter to win the war, win the election.